Once upon a tariff-free time in 2022, the European Union extended a grand gesture of solidarity to Ukraine. With the war raging and rolling, Brussels decided to drop tariffs on Ukrainian agricultural products. Politics was pushed aside, empathy rose to the surface, and the gates to the EU market were flung open. Ukrainian grains rolled in freely, and the friendship between Brussels and Kiev was celebrated as a symbolic triumph over adversity. Fast forward to 2025 and the mood has soured, or more accurately, ripened into a full-blown discontent. The EU is now preparing to reinstate tariffs on Ukrainian agricultural imports. Not because the war has ended, not because Ukraine has stopped needing help, but because European farmers, particularly in Poland, France and other eastern states, are at a breaking point, and Trump tariffs are breaking the backbone of European economy. The story is as simple as it is ironic. In trying to help Ukraine, the EU intentionally or unintentionally trampled its own farmers. With zero tariffs, Ukraine found an easy outlet for its surplus grains. It was a golden opportunity. Flush it all into Europe and let Brussels call it solidarity. But unfortunately, the Eastern European farmers bore the brunt. Markets were flooded with cheaper Ukrainian products. Local prices collapsed, and what followed was not just crop destruction, but livelihood destruction. Farmers protested. Tractors rolled through cities. Silos sat empty, and not because there was no grain, but because no one wanted the local stuff. The damage was swift and brutal. Thousands of farming families across the EU, especially in Poland, faced financial ruin. But don't mistake this policy shift as a grand change of heart. Brussels is not falling out with Ukraine. It is merely a tactical reset out of sheer necessity. In truth, the EU is still more than happy to funnel weapons and cash to Kiev, but as the public rage simmers and elections inches closer, in many countries, tariffs are one concession the Commission is now forced to make. According to a report by the Financial Times, the EU is now gearing up to impose significantly higher tariffs on Ukrainian imports. The current exemption, set to expire on 6th of June, will almost certainly not be extended. According to the insiders, the biggest impact will be felt across grain, sugar, honey, poultry and milling sectors, the Ukraine's bread and butter, quite literally. Poland, unsurprisingly, is leading the charge. Successive Polish governments, ignoring the EU trade rules, slapped unilateral bans on Ukrainian grain imports. The desperate times, desperate measures. Other countries, France included, soon sympathized. What began as an unbreakable partnership with Ukraine has now become a case of agricultural self-preservation. A European Commission spokesperson also confirmed the change, calling it part of a broader review of the EU-Ukraine trade deal. Translation, if you want so, Brussels finally reads the room. The Ukrainian government, on its part, is also understandably furious. Officials estimate that the return of pre-war tariff could cost them approximately 3.5 billion euros annually. Tough math for a country that is still embroiled in a war. However, to soften the blow, the EU plans to introduce monthly import quotas, a transitional measure meant to dial back Ukrainian imports without pulling the plug overnight. A middle path, perhaps, but not the one that will please either side completely. The irony, however, is hard to miss. While American arms continue to flood Ukraine and Brussels waves the banner of freedom, its European farmers, who feel like cannon fodder in this economic war they never signed up for, are now crying. Many now believe that the US pressure on Brussels to keep Ukraine afloat at all costs is also backfiring on EU's own internal stability. This isn't about ending the support to Ukraine, not yet anyway, but it is a rare example of the EU bowing to public pressure. After years of ignoring the street protest and angry farmers, Brussels is finally admitting that perhaps, just maybe, letting an external war dictate internal economic policy